1.5% slope on that right now. If we had that parking lot set by our engineers, if we go up, we bury some of the other oak roots, which I think Matt's going to talk about, could be just as bad for jeopardizing the tree. Or if we come down, we had to make this workable. So much so that when the director of library said, we're going to have a tough time with this site, I can't have people slipping on ice. This is going to be the only library or any building that the county owns that has been approved for breaking up the ice under the slabs. We have actually heated slabs so that no one slips up here. We were worried about safety. But we started looking, and right now, this paving area is still, the drive is at 12.5%. So on icy days, you're going to spin your wheels a little bit. And I heard one of the reports, I think our grade issue was, well, so what? Well, our engineers set it at that, and what we got was a set of criteria that when we trenched vertically down and cut, we were to watch out for roots. Unfortunately, the younger of the two trees back here, I expected that we would have problems with this one. But when they started horizontally grading, they hit 3 of the roots in the younger tree. And at that point, he said, we already know that we're dealing with this tear zone. We already know that we have a fault line that's not like a rolling fault. We better hire someone who knows what the hell they're doing, and we hired an arborist. And that arborist came out and indicated that your construction crews hit 3 roots when they were grading this way. We expected to trench down, and those were what we were worried about. We hit them. We hit 3 roots. And that was the younger of the trees. Now, what we did was hire an arborist, and they said, the big tree, without question, and this hasn't been chewed up by a sawdust machine, this was hollowed out. They literally, when we went out there and cut that out there last week, they couldn't even get it into the truck without a bucket. It kind of just fell apart. We'll take questions and comments. Obviously, this one's helping. But the arborist said, your construction crew, when you went horizontal, you hit 3 of the roots, it's going to go. It's not going to survive. We had 4 trees examined. The 2 that he said, you've got to clean up your act out here. Get that construction crew, aerate the soil, stop parking stuff underneath it, get those drip lines back, and that's what those 2 trees stay. So on the drawing that you see of all the trees that we had, 7 of the 9 that we were worried about are not a problem because they're in these zones. The 2 that were sitting out there, well, they're right where we were concerned. So the decision that the contractor said, well, you're not doing it on our time. We've got to move ahead with our report. If you're going to cut, you have to do it on the weekends because I don't want the liability on my crews. And in hindsight, that looks like we're big in the dead of night coming out here. It looks horrible. But we hit them horizontally. We didn't expect them. Our arborist, it was confirmed that this one was not 90% decomposed. And I'm just suggesting to you that that's what led up to, at least from the seismic side of it, our concerns about safety. And now that we damaged the younger of the trees, that it would be right smack dab in the middle of the parking lot. It was not to add more stalls. It was not to bait and switch you where we show it in a nice pretty rendering. We paid $40,000 to do studies to say, how bad is this? Did we really screw this up? And the arborist was on top of that. And so from the contracting side of it, the general contractor, we just never expected the younger of the 2 trees to get hit on the horizontal cut. And we did. We did. So when it talks about the trees, I'm going to let Matt talk about it. And then I know I saw some hands. Obviously, I want to make sure that we get to your comments and concerns about it. But from the construction side of it, that's kind of brought us to that point. And Matt, I'll let you speak to the trees themselves.
Well, I'm Matt Pontus again with General Services. And I kind of got involved here recently, after, some of the issues started coming up with the change in grade up there. And so, upon looking at those trees, and what we're concerned about primarily is the anchorage roots around the trees. Those are the roots that hold the trees and make sure that they're able to provide structure and help the tree stay upright. Upon removal of almost 100% of the absorption and anchoring roots around the circumference of the tree, out to where all those roots should have been, extending out at least to the drip line, if not further, that proposed obviously a pretty big safety hazard. We at the county have got over 45,000 trees under our responsibility. And anytime you have trees and you have a developed landscape below those trees, whether it's a parking lot, a playground, or a bike path, or anything like that, it presents a certain amount of liability, obviously. And so, as this thing continued on, we looked at this tree, the center tree, tree number 1 on the diagrams, and noticed that it was about I think it was a 60-inch blue oak, and there was at least a cavity inside present that was about 34 inches. And then you can see some of that cavity noted here in this center area. It had a cat face, or a kind of an old scar from something, some kind of mechanical damage earlier on in its lifetime. That it tried to heal up and put some other growth around. But it only had a little bit of holding wood around the outer circumference there, about 3/4 of the way around the tree. So when you're adding, in the tree liability world, when you're adding targets or people or infrastructure underneath that kind of tree, it's unsafe. And so the roots and then the cavity on the large tree. As far as the smaller blue oak, the 31-inch tree, the tree itself had a little bit of dead rot up in the top of it. Not a whole lot. It was a good, younger tree, probably only about 150, 160 years old. But it in itself, because of the grade change, it had lost all of those anchorage root systems around it. And when you take away that root system around it, you take away the ability for the tree to gather the necessary water and nutrients from the soil. And without that ability and any kind of anchorage to hold it steady there, and then you put a parking lot around it, and you put kids and people and all kinds of things around it, it was a condition that was unsafe to continue with. What Mark didn't get a chance to tell you was, obviously, we're going to replace the 2 trees that were up there with blue oaks, the same species that were removed, and in the same kind of planting areas. The planting areas that he had originally on his plans, I'm not sure exactly what the circumference of those planting areas were, but we're going to try to retain the same size planting areas, and that'll give the new trees plenty of room to grow and to try and establish new trees up in that area. As you guys know, I came from Parks Department prior to coming over to General Services, and the last thing we like to do is cut down trees. They provide, especially down in the flatland down there, they provide the shade that everyone needs down there, and wildlife habitat, and several other things aside from aesthetics. But one of the things that we're charged with the county is to try and protect the public also. And anytime we have a tree that presents a certain amount of dangerous, it has a high probability of failure or risk associated with it, it's time to mitigate that hazard. In some of the open areas, let's say Hart Park or some of the bigger areas,